I love this bike. I'd say Mutt's are some of the best looking low-cc bikes out there, but unfortunately they come with these giant mirrors, which in my opinion don't really match the proportions of the motorcycle. I'm going to try swapping the mirrors for something more minimal and aesthetically pleasing. The tricky part is that there are thousands of bar-end mirrors out there, but most of them extend the bars, which I'm not a fan of. Plus, if you ever drop the bike, that's the very first thing that's going to hit the ground. So I'm aiming for mirrors that mount in the original position or underhung. I think that setup preserves the bike's overall style and keeps the proportions looking right. As you can see here, for these Mutt catalog photos, they don't even mount the mirrors on. But mirrors come in handy, so I recommend using them. After hours of searching the internet, I found that Biltwell makes some really good looking mirrors, and they're very close to what I'm looking for. They're a bit pricey, but honestly I'd rather pay for a quality product than having to deal with a wobbly mirror that can't handle regular use. So I bought Biltwell's short-stem utility mirror. These mirrors come with a clamp, but the only ones available were for 25mm handlebars, and mine are 22mm. Also, my goal is to mount them in the same place as the OEM mirrors to keep everything clean and minimal without having to shift the controls or add more clutter to the bar. So I think I'm mounting them using the same hole the OEM mirrors use. Now here's the issue, because the mirrors are made in the United States, they use imperial hardware and my handlebars are metric, so the screws don't match at all. To fix that, I'll need a double-ended stud, one end a 5/16 course, the other end an M10 by 1.25, so both sides thread in the way they're supposed to. I went to a bunch of hardware stores and honestly I didn't expect the screw to be that specific. Even the European standard M10 with a fine pitch is hard to find. I also checked on Amazon and I couldn't even find the M10, let alone a double-ended one. I found a couple of fabricators that actually make the exact rod that I need. The first one was a German company and their whole website was in German. I used the translator and went ahead with the order, but something went wrong during the transaction and it got cancelled. I tried reaching out to the customer service, but I never got a reply, so I moved on to the next option. I found this company from the UK and honestly, their website is one of the best I've ever seen. Everything is well organized, the graphics, the info, the layout, it's all really easy to navigate and the amount of options they offer is insane. Unfortunately, what I need is so specific that the price reflects that. Just the two rods I need cost over €40 plus €20 for shipping, and on top of that I'd have to pay around €20 in import taxes. At this point I started to consider using the clamps with some spacers. But seeing all that beautiful hardware made me think it would be so cool to be able to make my own hardware. So with the prices of those two rods, I bought a metric and SAE tap and die set and M10 screws from China to attempt to create my own double-end screws for my mirrors. Alright, so I got the parcel with the M10 screws and I'm going to turn them into the double-ended rod. But first, I feel like I need to practice. This is my first time doing this, so I'm going to use this steel rod I found in my toolbox and I'll see how hard it is to use the tap and die set. I'm removing the head and this takes a while. I'm helping myself with chain loop and the bench vise. I could just sew it off, but I'm trying to be respectful with the neighbors and this is the quietest way of doing it. With the head off, I'm going to grind the edge a little bit to make it easier to insert the die, and then I proceed to make the threads. And again, this takes a lot of time. Here I'm using a piece of adhesive grip tape, just like the ones used on skateboards. Very important to have a clean workstation. And carry on to fixing the rod in the bench vise. I'm not sure if it's because the material in this case is hard or the die set is not very sharp, but I wish I had an aluminium rod. Anyway, I'll speed it up for you. I'm actually pretty satisfied with how they turned out. The threads work perfectly. I tested it with a nut of the same size and it fits nicely. The only issue is the bench vise. It's a bit too aggressive and left the rod all dented. So I need to figure out a better way to hold this, because that's definitely not good enough for the final piece I want to make. So now I'm moving on to make the final rods I actually need. I'll start by cutting the heads off the M10 screws and then I'll grind down the diameter, because the other end of the rod has to be close to 8mm so I can run the 5/16 die on it. Now with the head off, I'll start grinding it. I know this is going to take a while, so I figured I'd take my little workshop to the park and enjoy the sun while I work. I only took with me the drill, another piece of grip tape and a file. Back home I can finally start cutting the threads, and this time everything goes a bit smoother than before. Lubricating is very important, as well as cleaning the die every turn or so to prevent the metal shavings clogging the threads. Keeping the right pressure and stay in balance was no joke, but luckily it turned out good enough. I'm very happy with the result, and as you can see it fits the mirrors perfectly. Once I finished with both rods, I only had to wait for the nuts I ordered to arrive to begin mounting the new mirrors. Found them in a pack of 10 and it cost around €6, but they're good, fit nicely, and we'll definitely need them in future projects. On to mounting the mirrors on the bike, I'm putting some medium strength thread locker on the 5/16 part that threads into the mirror. I want it secure but only snug. These mirrors are made of aluminium, so tightening them too much could strip the threads or even crack the stem. Here I got a little scared. I thought I ordered the wrong nut, but then I remembered I tested one earlier and it worked perfectly. Turns out this one nut was just bad. Luckily it was the only one defective in the whole pack. So I insert the nut and screw the mirror onto the handlebar. A bit more thread locker on this side too, and then I turn the mirror clockwise until it sits against the nut. I make sure the mirror is positioned correctly and that I can actually see behind me before tightening it down. Here's a comparison between both mirrors. You can see this one sits much closer to the controls. Everything stays in the same area, it feels more balanced and it gives me a better field of view. Plus, I really like how solid the stem looks compared to the OEM one. Okay, so now I'll go through the same process on the other mirror. As you can see, there's a small gap between the two nuts. And that's something I couldn't avoid when fabricating the rods. I knew this would happen, so to make it look cleaner, I'm going to cover it. I considered using heat shrinks, but instead I'm going to use heat resistant tape. It adds a nice handmade touch and it matches the style of the bike, kind of like the exhaust rub. And here's the final result. I'm not gonna lie, this took way longer than I expected, but I'm really happy with how it turns out. The bike looks so much cooler now, and I got to learn how to make my own screws. I would encourage anyone to work on their bike. It's such a satisfying experience. Thanks for watching.